The chief speaks about last week's drive-by shooting, details on dinghies, and the town about to embark on a 2-year climate change study, all on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Thursday, November 8th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. The clock is ticking for Barnstable boat owners who still have dinghies at townways to water and other beaches. New regulations in effect this year ban the onshore storage of dinghies from November 15th through April 15th. If the dinghies are left on the beach, they may be scrapped or disposed of by the town. Barnstable police continue to investigate a drive-by shooting that happened last Friday in Hyannis. 4 shots were fired in the vicinity of 40 Spring Street around 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. Chief of Police Paul McDonald says 2 suspects were arrested later that night.
9 hours later. What happened was right after the incident occurred, we were immediately able to identify the vehicle involved in the incident. We had some ongoing investigations down there. We had taken some proactive measures, so we kind of had some immediate information that was readily available to us. We sent out a general broadcast. The state police were a huge asset to us. What they did, they sent out all their cruisers and they blocked all the roads leading out of Barnstable. So we knew we had the vehicle pinned down somewhere in the town of Barnstable. It was just a matter of time before we could locate it. And about 10:30, 11:15 that night, the street crime unit and the state police, they located the vehicle at the airport rotary. Subsequently made a felony stop at Route 28 in Walton Avenue. We knew at the time of the shooting there were 3 individuals in their car. When we stopped the car that night, there were 3 individuals in that car. The operator was subsequently arrested when she was questioned about the presence of the car being down there. She fabricated some stories, so she was charged with obstruction of justice, which is a charge where you purposely try to mislead the police during criminal investigation, and she was charged with obstruction of justice. Gentleman in the back seat, Mr. Brando, he was found to have 10 grams of heroin on his possession. He was arrested, and the other person at the time, there were no charges for him, so he was subsequently released. We now have the vehicle, so now that's a key part of this investigation. We have the vehicle's in secure storage, and we're waiting for the chemist. We have a search warrant for the vehicle. Once the chemist comes down and does his work, his very needed work inside the vehicle, we then are going to take all the electronics out of the vehicle, and we can do a search warrant on all the electronics to pinpoint this case and wrap it up. We do expect we will make multiple arrests on this case.
20-year-old Eric Brando of Osterville and 22-year-old Raisa Tristow of Centerville were in Barnstable District Court earlier this week. As Chief McDonald says, the investigation continues. He expects more charges to come for the pair. Well, the town of Barnstable is participating in a 2-year climate change study that's designed to help towns across New England prepare for the future. Director of Growth Management Joanne Miller-Buntage tells us Barnstable is one of 4 New England communities to become involved in the study.
Participating towns actually are Barnstable, Dover, New Hampshire, Wells, Maine, and Cranston, Rhode Island. So they picked one from each state. So it's interesting because we'll get a lot from them. What we're going to do is, and what we're in the process of doing right now, we have a sort of a working group internally with town staff, and we've identified stakeholders. Well, who are stakeholders? Well, stakeholders are people like government officials, environmental groups, for instance, 3 Bays and APCC, other regional partners, the business community, individual business owners, and people like the bars, the shellfishing groups, aquaculturists, all kinds of people that anyone who might be involved in directly or interested in the fate of what happens on the coastal side. And there'll be interviews with the stakeholders over a period of time to understand, to share information with them, and so we can hear what their views are on this subject.
The project team includes the Wacoit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, MIT, and the Consensus Building Institute. The project designed to help the community develop a better understanding of climate change risks. We take you now to this week's Land Acquisition and Preservation Committee meeting, where Tree Warden Charlie Genitosio provided an update on vegetation and trees as it affects some of Barnstable's conservation areas.
I've been the tree warden for probably 28 years. I've been through all the hurricanes, the tropical storms. Really intimate with this piece of property right here, because when I first started working for the town of Barnstable, Tom knows what it was like 30 years ago here. We used to spend a couple, 3 days a week working out here. We had things were different back then, and before the roads were gated. We used to trim the brush, did some cutting, we kept the roads open, but the litter got so bad out there with washing machines, Coke machines, tires, things of that sort. The town decided to start gating off some of these areas, and that cut down on everything. But what had happened was, went through a number of years where nothing was really getting done out here as far as the recreational aspect. And there was kind of a feeling back then that if, you know, the town of Barnstable is going to go out and they're going to buy this piece of property, that, you know, maybe you should show the taxpayers that it's a resource, it's being used, people are recreating out there. And back when I first started, most of the recreating out there was motorcycle usage. So, anyway, we continue to do a little maintenance, but as things changed and evolved in the town government, my resource was in other areas, and that was in tree trimming, tree removals, tree planting. And so what we did, conservation, I've been working with conservation for all of these years still, is we kind of sat down and we talked about putting in some trails out here. So I think we probably have, I'm just going to guess, I should know more of the mileage, but there's probably about 25 miles of trail out here. And we recently did a new GPS on this piece of property about 3 years ago. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I happen to be the president of the New England Mountain Bike Association, and we get a lot of volunteer help, and we built an overlook deck that's up here that right now it's a little bit overgrown, but we're going to do some tree cutting up there so that you can open that deck area back up again. About 5 or 6 years ago, Darcy, Carly, and myself, I went to Darcy, and there was some rye fields that they call the Field of Dreams, which is right here. Okay, it's noted as the Field of Dreams. And a number of years ago, our Natural Resource Officer, Doug Calloway, and some others cleared this out here, and they planted ryegrass. And it's really pretty, but what's happened over the years is that a lot of the vegetation that comes up in the Cape Cod pastures and fields that aren't maintained are a lot of invasives. So we kind of looked at that, and if no one's ever walked out there before, you could probably take a nice short hike if you wanted to park along the road. So what we did was we hired a company down Cape to come in to manage this field for us to get rid of the woody invasives. And it's probably going on 4 years right now, and it's really beautiful. I built some bird boxes with my son, and we put the bird boxes out here in this field, and I have some pictures of it. Somebody had broken into the conservation and smashed all the bird boxes, and they got in there with a four-wheel drive pickup truck. And we're constantly fighting the battle of stopping the access into this place. Okay, we can't keep the motorcycles out. That's impossible. But you know, it's always a challenge to keep the quads out, the pickup trucks.
You can watch the full presentation online. Just head to town.barnstable.ma.us. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.